The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show. On this, what is it, Tuesday, January 14th. Hope everybody is having a fantastic week. I am not. I am sick again. It's like I return from trips and I get sick. So when I'm home, I'm sick, and then I go travel again, and then I come back home sick. And so not happy at all. This cold is like exactly the same cold I had in November. It started out the same. It developed the same. It may be a little bit better. It's not allergies. It's definitely kind of I don't know what it is. Who knows what it is? I don't know. What's it to be allergic? I get it on the road. I started being sick in California this time. Last time it was when I came back from Latin America and I started getting sick. Anyway, it sucks. That is the general statement. And if I'm a little low energy, or if I stop early, or if I have to go off screen for a minute or whatever, that's the reason. Enric says I'm getting tons of sleep. That's the thing. I'm also going to sleep really early, sleeping in, trying to get tons of sleep. I'm giving up. I don't know. I'll have to talk to my doctor or something. Maybe there's a magic cure for I mean, it's just a cold, but I do not do well with colds. Maybe, I don't remember this being when I was younger, but I do not do well with colds. It's wipes me out. I'm wiped out. I have a lack of super chats. I certainly have today. Where are you guys? Yeah, lack of super chats. All right. So on top of that, all the news I have is like super depressing. I think it all falls under the basic category of. I think it's going to fall under the basic category of. I was right. Trump is as bad as I always said he was, and he might actually ultimately be worse. But he's really, really, really bad already. He's not even president, and he's really, really, really bad. So we'll start with the peace deal, the ceasefire deal in Gaza, which, we've known is going to happen. It's been talked about since really the summer. Israel seemed to have wheeled itself out of it. Hamas didn't want to do it for a while. And it looks like it's going to happen. That is, there will be a deal to release, in phase 1, 34 hostages. Israel will release 1,300 terrorists, of which 200 are murderers. That is kind of, and Israel will basically retreat from much of the Gaza Strip. Now, we're still waiting to hear exactly what they're going to retreat from, but all the places that Netanyahu said, we're not going to retreat. There's no way. This is strategic. We have to stay here. He is now retreating from. They will create some kind of security buffer, and they're going to allow the Gazans to move from South Gaza to the northern Gaza, something Israel resisted vehemently allowing. And then when it considered it and proposed solution for it, they said, okay, we'll allow it to happen, but they all need to be screened by Israeli forces to make sure they're not moving weapons to the north and they're not moving fighters to the north. Well, now it turns out that the screening of the Gazans moving north is going to be done by the, pro-Israeli, pro-Western, anti-Hamas, just phenomenal allies of the West. The Qataris and the Egyptians are going to do the screaming. Now, remember, the Qataris have been giving Hamas money for years now, with which they built tunnels and weapons and everything else. The Qataris have also hosted Hamas's leadership in Qatar for a long, long time. The Qataris are also the host country and the number one supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is basically the Islamist mothership. The Qataris are, they play a game. They are also, by the way, just so you know, the largest funders, I think, of American universities, of anybody. The billions and billions of dollars into American universities. The Qataris, these are the people who are going to monitor that Hamas, the ally, does not move weapons to the north. And then the Egyptians, these are the Egyptians that, had a border with Gaza, allowed tunnels to be built across that border, allowed massive quantities of weapons to be smuggled into Gaza. Of course they knew about it. There's no question they knew about it. It was right under their noses. They're going to do the monitoring for Israel to make sure that weapons are not smuggled north. And then the Philadelphia corridor, which is the corridor that basically covers the border between Gaza and Egypt, which Israel claimed was strategic and and that it had to control. Otherwise, Hamas would build tunnels again, or otherwise Hamas would just move weapons from Egypt into southern Gaza. Israel insisted on keeping that. They would keep troops there. They would stay there. At least according to the latest reading of the deal, Israel will withdraw from that. Now, they hold on to the right to go in and retake these territories later on. It's just basically what Israel has done is surrendered to Hamas. Now, we'll see why in a minute, but they surrendered to Hamas. They basically said, we're not going to defeat you. For whatever reason, we can't. There's a sense in which our public won't allow it, our political leadership won't allow it, the world won't allow it. So we're gonna give up on the goal of victory completely. There's nothing here about victory. It's all about and that phase one, and then phase two is going to involve the return supposedly of the rest of the hostages, and it will also involve Israel withdrawing from whatever it still is in Gaza, again, with the exception of some kind of security buffer. And it will involve, I guess, some kind of resolution in either stage 2 or stage 3, long-term resolution for Gaza. And given Hamas still has about 20,000 fighters in Gaza, I mean, who's gonna supersede them? Who's gonna take their place? Who's gonna do this? So this is basically Israel giving up on every one of its goals when it set out after October 7th to defeat Hamas. I mean, how many times? And God, when will you people start believing me? How many times do I have to be right to get any kind of credibility? But I told you Netanyahu would cave. I told you when he says victory doesn't mean it. I told you, Israel will not defeat Hamas. And here it is. They're completely caving. Now, we'll see the final details of the deal, and we'll see how it evolves over the next few months. But clearly, this is surrender. This is Israel bringing out the white flag. 5 soldiers died yesterday in the northern Gaza Strip. Why? For what? Over 400 soldiers have died in this war. For what? To weaken Hamas a little bit? To take out their leadership? They just replace them? What exactly was the purpose of this war? They've destroyed a lot of the buildings, the homes, the infrastructure. For what? What's the goal? They haven't diminished the Gazan people's commitment to destroy Israel. They haven't reduced the power of Hamas over the Palestinian people. They haven't reduced the popularity of Hamas. And indeed Hamas is not quite as big and strong as it was, but it's almost as big as it was when the war started because they keep recruiting more people. 40% of Gaza basically, I think, was never occupied by Israel. And the 34 hostages that are going to be released, the last I read is they hope that they're alive. But there's a good chance, they believe, that some of them are dead. Israel is basically defeated, given up, for the bodies of the dead, and maybe few alive, at the expense of what? At the expense of thousands who will die in the future? At the expense of hundreds who might be kidnapped in the future to get more deals like this? 1,300. Israel insisted that the 200 murderers not be released into the West Bank or Gaza. Rumors have it they're going to be released to Turkey. All right? I wonder if that's the last we'll hear of them. Remember, Sinwar was one of the people who was released. Sinwar, the head of Hamas, or the one who Israel just killed a few months ago, was one of the people released, and in the last time, Israel released over 1,000. I mean, this is disgraceful. It's shameful. It's contemptible. It's defeatist. And I get the importance of getting the hostages back, but at what price? At what price? Hamas, I'm sure, is celebrating this as a massive victory. And that's all we need. That's all the West needs, it's all Israel needs, is Hamas to feel victorious. And that's exactly what's happening. Well, one question is, and again, we'll have more details about this in the next few days in terms of, in the news story I read, Israel believes most of the 33 are alive, but that some are dead. So it's going to be interesting. So the 200 are released into Turkey, but the 1,000 are released into the West Bank. So there's another 1,000 terrorists that you can add on to the list of already terrorists that are there. Again, all of this speculation, we will see. Maybe they'll send the 200 murderers to Qatar, which is where they probably belong, and where they'll be celebrated and where they'll be, put up in the Four Seasons or something. The first phase is 42 days. Again, Israel forces will withdraw from population centers. Palestinians will be allowed to return to their homes in northern Gaza, not that there are many homes left there. This is the other part of it. There's going to be a surge in humanitarian aid. Now, notice that there was never famine in Gaza. Massive amounts of humanitarian aid have flowed into Gaza, huge amounts, but it's never enough for the altruists. Never enough. The sacrifice is never enough. Notice also that Israel could have won this war fairly easily by shutting off the water, by not allowing any trucks with food to go in there, by shutting off the electricity, and God forbid, this is the worst of all, by shutting off internet and cell phone service, which are all provided by Israel. Talk about sacrificing for your enemy. Talk about explicit and equivocal altruism. Imagine if they'd done that and said, okay, you want water? Easy. Release hostages. You want electricity? Release hostages. You want internet service? You want cell phone coverage? Release hostages. This is not 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This is 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. This is the Netanyahu government policy vis-a-vis Hamas, a continuation of his policy that he started 20 years ago. Appease, compromise, cut deals, and hope somehow they change or go away. So the Philadelphia corridor, they will stay there in phase 1, but they will reduce the number of forces they have there. But they will pull out completely from what's called the Netzarim corridor, which splits the Gaza from north to south, which they said they would always stay in, that was permanent. They would never leave. They will leave that in phase 1. In phase 2, they will also, or in future phases, they will also leave the Philadelphia corridor. And they will get the rest of the hostages, supposedly. Again, mostly, I assume, most of the remaining hostages are probably dead. We will, as I said, I will update you on the final aspects of this deal when it happens. Now, why did Israel suddenly capitulate on all the things that they had declared red lines that they would never cross? What made it urgent that this deal be done now, today, tomorrow, this week? Well, I mean, here are the headlines from Israeli newspapers yesterday and today. Trump's Mideast convoy forced Netanyahu to accept a Gaza plan he repeatedly rejected. This is from Haaretz, a leftist newspaper who hates Netanyahu. Times of Israel. Hostage talks advanced after, quote, tense meet between Netanyahu and Trump envoy. The Guardian in England. Trump's Middle East envoy visits Netanyahu in push for Gaza ceasefire. The Telegraph. How Trump's salty, in quotation marks, envoy may have forced Israel's hand on hostage deal. Trump envoy presses for Gaza ceasefire deal before January 20th Netanyahu meeting. Now, I told you weeks ago that when Trump threatened that there had to be a deal, otherwise all hell would break loose, I didn't think he was talking about the Gazans. I didn't think he was talking about Hamas. He was talking about Netanyahu. Relationship between Netanyahu and Trump have never been particularly good. By the way, last headline I saw, and you will see if once the deal is cut, this changes. But this is the headline again from the Times of Israel. Netanyahu unlikely to attend Trump inauguration. Hasn't had official invite, aides say. It could be that this deal was his way to get the invitation. I don't know if you saw, but Trump 2 days ago shared a video of God, what's his name? The academic, the pro-Russian academic who used to be at Harvard. God, I forget his name. Anyway, the guy berated Netanyahu. Netanyahu always wants war and always is pushing America into wars, right? This was an interview he did with Tucker Carlson. Jeffrey Sachs, thank you, Neocon. Jeffrey Sachs. Trump shared this on his Truth Social. No comment, just shared this clip where Jeffrey Sachs goes off on Netanyahu. So Trump's relationship with Netanyahu is not a good relationship. He thinks Netanyahu is too arrogant. He's talked about this, once he left the White House, that Netanyahu is too arrogant, that Netanyahu wants America to do Israel's bidding. And Trump wanted a deal. He didn't care about the details of the deal. He wanted a deal. And if Hamas stuck to its guns, and it did, literally, then the only people Trump has leverage on, you can come to my inauguration if you do this. If you sell your people short, you sell them downriver. The only levers he had were on Netanyahu. The only levers he had were on Israel, and he used them to the fullest extent. Supposedly, Trump's envoy to the Middle East is a Jewish real estate developer who flew to Israel on Saturday and said he demands a meeting with Netanyahu immediately. And he was told Netanyahu doesn't meet on Saturday. He'll meet you Saturday evening because he doesn't work during the day on Saturday. And the envoy says, I don't give a shit. You get him here. I am meeting him now. And Netanyahu went and met him. And that was a meeting in which his arm was twisted and Trump's basic demands were conveyed, and Netanyahu completely capitulated. So this is Trump making deals. One of the things that Trump recently has been quoted as complaining about Netanyahu is that Netanyahu constantly is trying to drag America into a war with Iran, which also suggests to you how Trump is going to approach Iran. He's not going to approach Iran from a position of military strength. He's not going to take advantage of Iran's weakness right now to destroy their nuclear facility or to give Israel a green light to do so. He is going to approach it from the perspective of negotiations. They are weak. We can cut a better deal with them. We can cut a good deal with them. So this is Trump through and through. Now, it's not just Trump. It's also Netanyahu. Netanyahu is a sellout, always has been a sellout. He's a weakling, always has been a weakling. He's a coward, always has been a coward. He's an indecisive coward and always has been. I've been critical of Netanyahu for over 25 years, and it saddens me. But every time I think, okay, maybe I've been too harsh on him, just like with Trump. Maybe I'm too harsh on him. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm a little... Maybe I'm being too hard. They prove me right over and over and over again. So depressing, depressing as hell. And yeah, I do expect Trump to send Iran huge amount of cash because I think that's what a deal will involve. A deal will involve the loosening of sanctions. Iran supposedly giving up on their nuclear ambitions, but not giving up on much more, and getting a loosening of sanctions, which is basically the equivalent of gazillions of dollars in cash. You guys can continue to try to save Trump. You can continue to try to rationalize him, justify him, pretend that he's not as god-awful as he actually is. But he is god-awful. He wanted a deal before January 20th so he could have a win. He's not going to have a win in Ukraine. He said Ukraine would be over before he was inaugurated into office. He's not going to get that win. Not going to get that win. So he is going to get at least a win in Gaza, even though it's not a win, it's a loss. He is going to sell it as a win, right? He released hostages. By the way, the first hostages Hamas will release are the 5 Americans, supposedly. We will see. Again, we will see. But there you have it. There is a deal. Israel will pay dearly for this deal. It will pay dearly for this deal for many, many years. This is a deal I predicted would happen all along. What surprised me was Netanyahu's toughness with regard to Hezbollah. But then again, there was a ceasefire, which was weak. What surprised me was Israel willing to enter Syria and take control of a buffer zone there. We will see how that turns out. Yeah, it's depressing. What can I say? It's just depressing. All right. The main story, though, that basically is dominating the news in the United States, as it should, that is a horror for those living in Southern California, particularly in Los Angeles County and maybe in Ventura County, is the fire situation in Los Angeles. As you know, vast swaths of areas within Los Angeles are burnt down. The neighborhood of Palos Verdes, which is a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood, not far from Beverly Hills, not far from Brentwood. Many, many homes are burnt down, including many multi-million-dollar homes. This is where the rich in Los Angeles, many of the rich live. But you've also got fires really raging all over Los Angeles County. You've also got fires in Ventura County. And the firefighters have not been able to, now over a week, have not been able to really control these fires. They've not been able to suppress them. They're barely under control right now. The Palos Verdes fire is still going on. There've been a lot of, this has brought to the surface, a lot of accusations against the LA Fire Department, its practices, against the governor and the mayor of Los Angeles, and has really brought to the surface the real ugliness of what is happening in California, the ugly consequences of the environmentalist policies, the ugly consequences of the D.I.E. processes, and even more important than both of those, the ugly consequences of the state intervening in markets, in particular with regard to this case, insurance markets. And what you have here is really just a classical case of government failure, massive government failure. I mean, where do you even start? There's so many different issues that are being just revealed over the last week because of these fires. You can start with just the California, LA County obsession with environmental concerns. So just to give you one example, but this is one example among many, 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 many examples, right? In 2019, this is from the Wall Street Journal. 2019, the LA Department of Water and Power sought to widen a fire access road and replace old wooden utility poles in the Topanga Canyon that abuts the Palisades with steel ones to make power lines fire and wind resistant. In the process, crews removed an estimated 182 Bronton milk velch plants. I'm mispronouncing that, but who the F cares? Which is, by the way, an endangered species. I'm sure you didn't know that, but they are an endangered species. The utility halted the project as state officials investigated the plant's destruction. More than a year later, the California Coastal Commission, just as an aside, one of the most evil government entities in the United States. It's just a fascist, it was actually created by an immigrant from Germany with fascist tendencies, a really fascist organization. The California Coastal Commission issued a cease and desist order, fined the utility $2 million, and required mitigation for the project's impact on this plant, on this species. So they had to replace non-native vegetation with plants native to the state. And so what the California progressives care about is Bolton's milk velch plants. They don't give a damn about how homes burning. I mean, maybe they celebrate homes burning. They don't want people living in California. They want California to be run over by, native plants and native animals. So, here they are preventing the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power from actually doing the right thing, actually widening, doing something that might have prevented this fire, might have prevented fires. Now, one of the things about milk velch, this plant, it requires wildfires to propagate. That's the way it grows. It grows by having the land burn. Right. So human beings, not so much. Don't care so much. Milk velch plants, never heard of them? Yeah, that's what we're going to invest in. That's what we want. So that's just one example of dozens. We'll get to the smelt in a minute. But that's one example of the environmentalists basically prohibiting doing what was necessary in order to reduce the potential of fires to get to neighborhoods, reduce the damage fires might do. Notes that things like clearing the underbrush, controlled fires, these are things that, professionals understand. It's what you have to do if you're going to control the fuel. So last year and the year before, California had huge amounts of rain. So a lot of growth. And then this year, since basically the summer, there's been almost no rain. So all of that stuff that grew when it rained is now dry. That's the fuel for the fire. Proper fire management, proper land management would involve clearing all that underbrush. Clearing all that underbrush and, reducing the amount of fuel that the fire can use, if it gets started. Don't do that. Remember, all this land is government-owned land. So, the environmentalists basically prevent doing what makes sense. They prevent the management of the land in a way that, whoops, what is going on here? All right. And where did all of that go? Sorry, what's that? Something has disappeared on me. There it is. Prevent doing what is necessary in order to minimize the possibility of fire and minimize the damage that fire will create if it happens. None of that is being done. Now, on top of that, let me just find this. What am I looking for? Okay, let's move. So I'm just organizing windows on my screen. We will get there. There it is. All right. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the budget of the LA Fire Department. But it turns out the budget for the LA Fire Department is actually not shrunk. But what's interesting is that the fire budget didn't shrink. It indeed expanded because a new union contract with firefighters boosted pay and benefits by $76 million, which is about $20,000 per firefighter. They were already earning on average about $200,000 plus $90,000 in benefit. They got a 10% increase by $20,000. They can retire at 55. They get pensions equaling 90% of their final salaries. So, okay, so they gave them a raise, but they gave them a raise, but then what they did was, in order to partially pay for that, they cut fire prevention budgets, right? The budget of the things that firefighters do, the equipment they use to do it, by 5%. So they cut part of the budget, but in order to curry favor, let's say, with the unions, which is a long tradition in California, they gave them a massive raise. So add to that the fact that Los Angeles spends $350 million a year on firefighter pension and benefits. Again, they are eager to cut the department's budget. And of course, Los Angeles fire chief has said on television that her number one top priority, this is before the fires, the number one top priority as the fire chief of Los Angeles was diversity, inclusion, and equity. Diversity, inclusion, and equity, bribe the firefighters union. I'm not sure exactly for what, maybe for their votes in a city election. Don't let those little plants that are native to California, can't remove those. We can't do anything to stop fires if we're harming the little plants. The little plants get priority no matter what. So more reasons why these fires are out of control. And then there was the issue of water. The firefighters got to some of the places and they connected to hydrants and there was no water. Now, one of the reservoirs is completely empty for repair. Second time in 2 years, it's empty for repair. Complete insanity. They can't keep the reservoir, and it's got to do with the cover. There has to be, the reservoir actually has a cover on top of it. And there was something wrong with the cover twice now. And so they emptied the reservoir because you couldn't have the reservoir be there without a cover on it. The cover is to protect the water somehow. I've never seen reservoirs with covers, but I read this, so. Anyway, one of the main issues in California with regard to water is that Northern California, parts of Northern California, have massive amounts of water. Massive amounts of water. And there have been projects on the board, on paper, to funnel that water. I mean, much of the water from in Southern California comes from the north. There are all kinds of water projects from the beginning of the 20th century, middle of the 20th century, that moved water from the north to the south. And there's still a lot more water that could be moved from the north to the south. The south is, climate change or no climate change, the south gets a lot of droughts. It's dry. It doesn't rain much in Southern California. The Beach Boys wrote a song about it, right? So, and if climate change is happening, then that'll only become more. It'll only become drier, maybe. Except for the years where it rains a lot, and then there are floods. So one solution to the dryness is to bring water from the north to the south. Literally billions of gallons of water every year are flushed out to the Pacific Ocean, while California has massive water shortages. Why? Why? Because they haven't figured out how to move the water to the south while not disturbing smelt. This little fish thing, the delta smelt fish. The delta smelt fish would be harmed if water was moved to the south. And with that quantity of water moved to the south, it would solve a lot of these problems of empty reservoirs and problems of dryness and problems of lack of water more generally that the Southern California suffers from. But as we know, the delta smelt fish is far more important than your home, far more important than your community, and of course, far more important than your life. I mean, don't be selfish. It's you or the delta smelt fish. And in California, there's no question at all on how that one is decided. It goes completely to the smelt fish. And Newsom, Gavin Newsom has been big, very big on fish protection. Not so much on human being protection, fish protection. He's a very, very, I mean, if fish could vote, they would definitely vote for Gavin Newsom. Now, a lot of these fires, we don't know yet about this particular fire, although it's likely. A lot of these fires are started by the homeless. Most of it not on purpose, but they live in places that are, you know, that have a lot of dry brush. They live in encampments. They have open fires. Indeed, according to the Los Angeles Times, in early 2021, there were 24 fires on average each day in city homeless encampments. Now, if an encampment is in downtown LA, probably not going to cause a fire. But an encampment on the fringes of LA, and LA is full of green areas or gray areas when there's no water, you know what that causes. Indeed, last week, a homeless man was detained with a flamethrower trying to incinerate Christmas trees and garbage cans. I mean, these people, a lot of these homeless are mentally unstable. Now, whether he was the one who started the fire or not, we don't know, but he's a suspect. He's a suspect. So, all of these problems catching up with California, the environmental issues, the water issues, the groveling before the unions, and the cutting budgets for things that relate to human beings. To human beings. The sense in which California does not value human life. It really doesn't. Not when you have the delta smelt fish. Now, on top of that, we now have this massive destruction. And a lot of the people whose homes have been destroyed, it turns out, don't have insurance. Now, why? Let me just, we'll talk about that in a minute. So they don't have insurance. Why don't they have insurance? Well, because insurance companies are not allowed by law to charge them the actual rate that compensates the insurance company for the risk. In California, there are price controls on fire insurance. This goes back to Proposition 103. It was passed, 20 years ago, something like that. Maybe somebody could figure out the exact date. Look, I sometimes in California, a proposition passes that is great. But democracy sucks. Propositions are a form of direct democracy. Direct democracy is not good. Most people don't know what's right, what's good, what works. 1988, sorry, it was passed in 1988, so that's much more than 20 years ago. And basically what Proposition 103 did was place price controls on fire insurance. So if an insurer shows they need a 40% increase to cover expected costs and get a fair return, and let's say they do that and regulators only approve 15%, then, they are, if they write these insurance policies, they're likely to have real losses. California ranks 50th in rate suppression. That is where the government forces rates down, approving rates 29% below what actuaries show is needed for homeowners insurance. So regulators force insurers to sell way, way, way below costs. Now, as a consequence of that, a lot of insurers have just left the state. It's just impossible for many people to get insurance. Now, they could get insurance in a market if the insurance was priced properly. Now, on top of that, California won't let insurance use catastrophic models to project future fire risk. So let's say I'm an insurance company and I go to the regulators and say, look, I agree with you guys. Global warming is a problem. There are probably going to be more fires in the future. And here's a model that it's not the most likely, but it's something we have to take into account. Here's a catastrophic model where there's a catastrophic fire and thousands of homes burned down. The regulator says, no, you can't use those models. You can't assume the worst case scenario. You can't assume bad outcomes. You can assume moderately bad outcomes, but not really, really, really bad outcomes. And then most insurance companies reinsure the risk. They actually have insurance on insurance. California will not let them consider the reinsurance costs. So again, this forces the companies to charge a lot less than they would otherwise want to charge. When you do want to change rates, everything happens very, very, very slowly. California delays rate hikes for as long as it can. The average delay of a rate hike is 236 days. And so, you could go through 3/4 of a year or 2/3 of a year and not even get the suppressed rate from what you requested. And it's just getting worse. That is, the California insurance regulator is just becoming more and more and more authoritarian. As a consequence, State Farm, Allstate, farmers of all pulling back. They're all stopping to insure homes. And therefore, there were a lot of homes that burned down, didn't have insurance. And on top of that, a lot of homeowners figure FEMA's going to come in, California's going to come in, and they're going to cover me. So why buy insurance? Indeed, there is a California alternative. I think State Farm, if I remember right, State Farm refused to, this was earthquake insurance in California. You couldn't buy earthquake insurance in California because of the same kind of games that they were playing. So if you wanted earthquake insurance, you had to buy it from the state. And the state, as a consequence, has massive potential liabilities, just massive, that would bankrupt California. if there was a major earthquake, or if there's a major series of fires, because a lot of the fire policies now are basically being held by California. So price controls have, surprise, horrific consequence on the ability to get fire insurance. So insurers have abandoned large swaths, large areas of California, and people will now be able to build their homes. Now, and this will be the final one of government intervention. I mean, government intervention in the economy is always disastrous, and nobody ever learns. Nobody ever learns. Indeed, they've learned the opposite, because now the right in America wants to intervene in markets just as much as the left. So it's more popular than ever. Than ever. So the latest is that Newsom has said, when it comes to rebuilding the homes, you can rebuild fast. We're going to streamline permitting. We're going to streamline everything. We're going to make it really, really fast. Now, first of all, why don't they do that regularly? Streamline. Oh, I wanted one more thing about insurance. Sorry, one more thing about insurance, and then we'll get to this. One of the consequences of the fact that everybody that insurance prices are low because the government forces them down. So it's relative to true cost, it's relatively cheap to get fire insurance. One of the consequences of that is that people build in fire-prone areas and buy insurance. If insurance prices actually reflected the real risk, it would provide a demotivator. It would provide an incentive not to build in fire-prone areas. Because if you did, you would have to pay a really, really high premium on your insurance policy. So price controls increase the risk people take. This is true in flood insurance, hurricane insurance, flood, all these things. So people build homes in flood zones because the insurance companies are not allowed to price the real risk of flooding. They build homes on beaches in Louisiana, which are prone to hurricanes, because insurance companies are not allowed to price. And when insurance companies leave, the government steps in and sells them insurance anyway. This is the beauty of markets. Markets price real risk. So if you engage in risky activity, you're going to have to pay for it. And at the margin, that disincentivizes people from engaging in the risky behavior, like building homes in flood zones, hurricane zones, fire zones. But we've taken that away. We've taken any incentive that markets provide on not engaging in risky behavior, and we've taken them away, and guess what happens? People engage in risky behavior. All right, let's see. Newsom has said, you can build your homes, we're going to fast track it, but the one thing I will not tolerate, and the same came from the mayor of Los Angeles, is we are going to prosecute to the full extent of the law. We're going to hunt you down, we're going to find you, we're going to prosecute you. Anybody caught during this period in price gouging. Now, again, I don't think I have to explain again. We've done this exercise over and over again, why price gouging is a good thing, particularly in a crisis like this. Why price gouging encourages more people to enter the market and provide more goods. Price gouging allows the people who most value the good to get it immediately, and those who value it less not to get it now, but to wait until more supply comes in and prices come down and then get it. So the lesson learned from too much government intervention into markets, destroying incentives, destroying basically our capacity to fight these fires, the lesson learned is we need more. We need more government intervention in the economy. We need more intervention into markets to control and manipulate markets. All right, those are fires in LA. It's a true tragedy. A lot of people have died. A lot of homes have been destroyed. A lot of lives. I mean, just imagine what you have in your home. I know what I have in my home. Imagine all that gone one day. I mean, a lot of people are suffering. And it would be pretty amazing if, for once, people learned from experience. They learned from what is happening. I mean, even the Atlantic magazine had a cover called How Well-Intentioned Policies Fueled LA's Fires. They talk about a lot of these issues. Will anybody pay attention? Will anybody listen? The Atlantic is not exactly known for its free market ideas. But even it sees the obvious. Will they start doing prescribed burns? Will they start clearing brush? Will they pay less attention to the environmentalists? Will they be willing to give up on the Delta smelt? Maybe move it to an aquarium. There's a beautiful one in Monterey. Will they do any of the things, the relatively simple things that need to be done? And will they lift price controls on insurance so we get an actual real insurance market that actually conveys real information to home builders and homeowners, and therefore actually provides the right kind of incentives for people to live in the right kind of places, right in a sense of less likely to burn down. All right. Let's run through a few additional stories. We've got two quick stories under the general guise of, yeah, Trump's as bad as I told you he was. Okay, so Trump announced today, I think it was, yes, today, that he is going to create a new agency to collect revenue from foreign sources. From foreign sources. This is what he wrote. I mean, Trump is not getting any better. Nobody in the background is teaching him any kind of basic economics. He has no conception of what he's doing. So here's what he wrote. For far too long, we have relied on taxing our great people using the Internal Revenue Service. Through soft and pathetically weak trade agreements, the American economy has delivered growth and prosperity to the world while taxing ourselves. I think all those other countries are taxing themselves as well. It is time for that to change. I am today announcing that I will create the external revenue service to collect our tariffs, duties, and all revenue that come from foreign sources. We will begin charging those that make money off of us with trade, and they will start paying, finally, their fair share. January 2025 will be the birth date of the External Revenue Service. The guy's a nut, and not just a nut, but an ignorant, particularly of economics, nut. I just lost a bunch of people. They unsubscribed as soon as I said ignorant nut. Donald Trump, the External Revenue Service. He is launching that. He is going to go around collecting tariffs from foreigners. Not how trade works, not how tariffs work. Not how tariffs work. So it's going to be interesting who's going to be in this department, what they're actually going to do, how it's going to be pitched, how it's going to be framed. You know, if I had the energy, I would laugh. But it's pretty funny. It's ultimately pretty funny. All right, and then also, I think today, Trump also tweeted the following. I think there were. For those of you who think of Donald Trump as the free speech president, the one who's going to protect free speech. I mean, he never was. Can't even conceive of it. But let me just see something. I missed something. Oh, that was that. Okay, this is fine. He wrote this overnight. How bad is Seth Meyers on NBC? A network run by a truly bad group of people. Remember, they also run MSDNC. I got stuck watching Marble-Mouth Mayers the other night. Stuck. Somebody, actually, he was glued to his chair. He couldn't leave, wasn't allowed to leave. The first time in months, and every time I watch this moron, I feel an obligation to say how dumb and untalented he is. Merely a slot filler for the scum that runs Comcast. The scum that runs Comcast. This is the president of the United States, or to be in a few days. These guys should be paying a lot of money for the right to give these in-kind contributions to the radical left Democratic Party. These are not shows of entertainment. They are simply political hits. 100% of the time. To me and the Republican Party, Comcast should pay a big price for this. So, entertainment's fine. And what else? And shows are fine. But political speech, you can't criticize me. You can't criticize Donald Trump. That you're going to pay a price for. You're going to pay big time. It's completely unacceptable that you side with the Democrats. If you side with the Democrats, you don't have free speech. I mean, this is not a free speech president. This is the exact opposite. This is a president who, throughout his first term and throughout the years since, constantly threatens the media to silence them, fine them, destroy them, penalize them for saying things he doesn't like. This is, he hasn't yet engaged in censorship, but this is threatening censorship. And when a president threatens censorship, that's close to censorship. Where are all the right-wing defenders of free speech attacking Trump? Where's Elon Musk, our champion, our knight in shining armor, who is supposed to defend free speech? Where's he criticizing Donald Trump? I mean, Donald Trump is the most anti-free speech president at least in modern history. I don't know what was going on in the 19th century. So, and he just keeps going. It's people say, oh, he says all this stuff, but he keeps saying it, and he keeps doing it. And now he's basically asked Israel to fall on its sword so he can get a win. He's stabbed Israel in the back, or asked them to stab themselves. They agreed. So he can get a win. This guy's a monster. I've said it for years. Most of you ignored me. He's no friend of Israel. He's no friend of America. He's no friend of anybody. He's a narcissist who doesn't know what friendship means. All right, let's see. 2 final stories. Let's stay in the Trump universe this is the Trump universe. This is good. Okay, so you know how Biden nixed the Nippon Steel buying U.S. steel deal? And Trump, of course, supported that. And Trump said that if Biden hadn't done it, he would do it. Well, Cleveland Cliffs, which is a U.S. Steel manufacturer, is now supposedly putting together a bid to try to buy U.S. steel for a lot less money than Nippon. So U.S. Steel shareholders are not going to be happy, but they are going to try to buy U.S. Steel. Anyway, the CEO of Cleveland Cliffs, I don't know, I think was inspired by Donald Trump. He went on this triad against Japan during a press conference he just did, announcing that they're trying to put together this deal. More than 90 minutes, just unbelievable. He basically attacked Japan for being evil. Here's the direct quote, Japan is evil. Japan taught China a lot of things. Japan taught China how to dump, how to make overcapacity, how to overproduce. So of course, shouldn't sell to a Japanese company. He then criticized Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for expressing concern to Biden about the decision to block Nippon's acquisition of U.S. Steel. Gonzalez, the CEO, challenged Ishiba to bring the same concern to the White House when President-elect Donald Trump takes office. Yeah, let's see you do it then. And he says, Japan, beware. You don't understand who you are. You did not learn anything since 1945. You did not learn how good we are, how gracious we are, how magnanimous we are, how forgiving we are. I mean, this guy is nuts. It really does seem like Donald Trump is bringing out the best in people. This is a CEO of an American company, a steel company, going after the Japanese for no reason. Japan is evil, and they haven't learned the lessons of 45, really. This is our ally, who we constantly ask to work with us to contain our enemies. Amazing. It's truly, truly stunning and amazing. All right, finally, there is a new development in the TikTok story. The TikTok deal is the law is currently in front of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will rule about whether the law can go into effect, which would basically mean that on the 19th of January, TikTok will shut down unless it sells before then. Now, the Chinese have said they will not sell. They do not want to sell. If the U.S. government forces their hand, they will just shut it down. They will just shut it down. Well, it turns out that they might be having second thoughts. There are headlines saying, this headline in Bloomberg saying, China discusses sale of TikTok USA to Musk, to Elon Musk, as one possible option. So they think that maybe if they sold to Elon Musk, that would be okay. Now, why would they think that? Well, partially because they trust Musk. Look, Musk has vast business interest in China. Musk cannot afford to alienate the Chinese. And they think that if Musk controls TikTok, they can have a say in how it's run. Musk is very friendly with the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. And so it could be that Elon Musk will be buying TikTok over the next 7 days or less. I guess it has to happen in the next 5 days. That'll be kind of interesting. All right, another side note to this TikTok ban. A lot of people who use TikTok a lot, and a lot of influencers who are on TikTok, are looking for alternatives. And as a what do you call it? In order to show their disdain and how upset they are about TikTok closing, instead of shifting from TikTok to, I don't know, Reels on Facebook or Instagram or Shorts on YouTube, they are shifting to something called Red Note, Red Note, which is also known as Xianhongwushu, something like that, which translates into, of all things, Little Red Book. Anybody know what the Little Red Book is? Mao's Little Red Book. That's right. How did Mensa West know that? That's pretty good. Mao's Little Red Book. It is often compared to TikTok because it has short-form video content. Red Note also integrates elements similar to Pinterest, using users with a mix of video and live stream features. The platform allows users to share product reviews, experiences, lifestyle content, creating a blend of social interaction and online shopping. It's been around for a long time, since 2013, but it never really took off. Well, it is now the #1 downloaded app on the Apple Store. So, the United States might be banning TikTok for national security concerns, and it might be just shifting everybody's action to another Chinese company with just as many national security concerns, or none at all, as the case may be, just shifting it to another Chinese company. So markets work in interesting ways. Anyway, everybody's waiting for the Supreme Court to rule. Everybody assumes they're going to rule to let the law go through, and then we'll see whether Elon Musk takes it over or whether all these people just shift to another Chinese company to do their business. All right. I think that's it. I mean, there's a lot more we could cover, like the confirmation hearings are going on right now. Pretty ridiculous affairs. We've also got Jack Smith's report was released. It's worth reading Trump's response to it. It's just, again, funny in terms of how the President of the United States communicates. But maybe we'll cover those tomorrow. Maybe we'll cover something else. We'll see. All right. I am fast losing my voice, so I think the best thing we can do now is to shift to our super chat. So let me go to super chat. Let me remind everybody, we've got about 200 people watching right now, over 200. One way you can support the show. This show is listener funded from listeners like you. It wouldn't exist without you guys. And it's a value for value. Listen, I don't charge anything for you to listen. I don't put it behind a paywall. But, it would be nice if you showed value for value by supporting the show in one way. One way is some way. And one way to do that is by just jumping in here on the super chat. You can do a sticker. You can do an actual super chat. Either way is great. Super chats are questions. Questions are nice because that way I answer them and you get to kind of shape the things that I talk about. So please consider doing a super chat or a sticker. Stickers are great. You can do a buck, $2, $5, $500, whatever you want. The limit is 500. But anything above 0 and below 500 is acceptable on the Yaron Brook Show. You can also become a monthly supporter. Thank you. Pedja just did €3, I think. €3 or £3. €3. Thank you, Pedja. As a sticker. Also, you can become a monthly supporter of the show on patreon.com. So please consider becoming a monthly supporter on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and put in Yaron Brook Show. All right. I'm a little, let's see how long I last here. If you haven't noticed, I've got a bad cold. So, yeah, and a bunch of people have left. They come and go. Let's see. Michael, $50. Thank you, Michael. Really, really appreciate that. After COVID tyranny on October 7th and Russia invading Ukraine and Trump's election, I thought Western civilization was collapsing fast. But it wasn't. We always bounce back, which makes me think we have time for objectivism to spread to dominance. I mean, yeah, maybe. Again, it's going to take a long time for objectivism to spread to dominance. So civilization is going to have to bounce back many, many, many more times. And things could get a lot worse in the meantime. But yeah, I think we do have time. But it's going to be 40, 50 years. Nothing here is quick. Nothing here is easy. Nothing here is straightforward. It's not going to be in my lifetime. Probably not going to be in your lifetime. And, you know, I remember the same thing going on for 50 years. I mean, who thought the United States could bounce back from the 70s? Or from 9/11, or from the Great Financial Crisis. So it's not, you know, this idea, or from World War II, this idea that you know, Western civilization bounces back. It's done so for over 100 years. But at the same time, culturally, it continues to descend. Economically, it goes from periods of economic growth to, you know, what we're living through today, which is a lot of stagnation. A lot of stagnation. All right, let me thank some stickers. Adri just did $50 sticker. Thank you, Adri. And Melanie did 20 euro sticker. Thank you, Melanie. And then we got John Bales and Apaja. Thank you guys. And let's see who else. We've got. I'm just going to do thank yous, and then getting back to your questions. But I want to make sure I catch everybody. Sergey, Apollo Zeus. Thank you, and thank you, Mark Goodwin, and thank you, Alex, thank you, Jeff, thank you, Mark, thank you, Mary, and all right, I think I got everybody. All right, Remo says, value for value. Thank you, Remo. Really appreciate that. Hiram says, is there actually a greater Israel project, as it's called? If so, then how do Hamas supporters get away with such a disgusting propaganda? No, there's no such thing as a greater Israel project in a sense of Israel, I don't know, taking over Syria, or going to Iraq, or going all the way to the Euphrates River, or things like that. There's no question that there are nationalists, religious nationalists in Israel who would certainly like to take over the West Bank and Gaza and make those part of Israel. And they would like to settle there, and they would like to kick out the Palestinians. And I can't say that I blame them, given the Palestinians' behavior in Gaza. I mean, it seems to me that given what happened October 7th, and given the Palestinians' overwhelming support in Gaza for what happened October 7th, that kicking them out of Gaza is not an unreasonable thing to do. Or at least incentivizing them to leave. Like leaving some empty boats on the shoreline there and nudging them a little bit. So there is a great Israel project if what you mean Israel proper, plus the West Bank and Gaza, but there's none beyond the borders. And the Israel within the current borders that include the West Bank, I mean, again, it's primarily religious Jewish nationalists who want that. Most Israelis have always been open to a two-state solution. The reality is that after October 7th, I'd be surprised if any Israelis are open to a two-state solution. Who the hell wants a state next door to you with people who are capable of doing and supporting what those monsters did on October 7th? So I think a two-state solution is very unlikely anytime in the next couple of decades. Robert says, man, colds are the worst, but according to Dr. Google, super chats are safe and effective for medical purposes. Bring them on, fellow YBS fans. Thank you, Robert. Melanie, thank you for another 20 euro. Really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Let's see. Mike says, at least some hostage families are protesting against anything less than the release of all hostages. Yeah, but even the release of all hostages in exchange for Israeli defeat is not a good deal. Never was a good deal. I said on October 8th, I literally said this on October 8th, you have to assume the hostages are dead. You have to crush Hamas, hope to rescue as many as you can, make the war really fast and brutal and unequivocal, and destroy them completely, and hope, and you might have even saved even more hostages. I don't know, but hostage deals only embolden evil, not just evil in Hamas, but evil all over the world. I think I gave you the example of Maduro collecting hostages so he can cut deals with the United States to get Venezuelans he likes out of jail. Not your average algorithm. If people are enthusiastically electing Donald Trump in the nation founded by the Enlightenment, humanity is light years away from being ready for objectivism. Yeah, you and Michael are the opposite extremes. Michael's very optimistic, and you here are very optimistic, but pessimistic. But yeah, this is the slow decay of society that makes possible enthusiastic support for Donald Trump. Michael, Mark Zuckerberg just did an interview on Joe Rogan and mentioned how people high up in the Biden administration would call him cursing to take certain posts down, real vicious attacks on free speech from the Democrats. Yeah, and I'll make a bet that he gets the same phone calls from the Trump administration. Or maybe he doesn't get a phone call. Maybe Trump just tweets that certain posts should be taken down because they are offensive in how they attack Donald Trump. Sadly, we have no defenders of free speech today in our political world. Left and right are both opponents of free speech, at least this left and this right, opponents of free speech. Shazbot, diversity, inclusion, and equity spells D.I.E. I can't believe nobody pointed this out before. Nice work. Yes. Die. It shouldn't be D.I., it should be die. D.I. die. John, knowledge is volitional, right? And animals don't have free will. Isn't it safe to say animals don't have any knowledge? Knowledge is conceptual knowledge, that's true. They know how to do things, but they know it because it's encoded. They don't carry it around as conceptual knowledge. They carry it around as encoded in their DNA, encoded in their genes. And that's how they, quote, know. And it's not the same kind of knowledge. We don't have another, I don't know of another word to express that, though. Hopper Campbell. Part 1, I disagree with one of your short clips. It's not correct to assert luck isn't a significant part of success. Some people inherit a fortune, or are born with 200 IQ, or born with good looking, etc. What's absurd is trying to punish luck through the tax code. Being envious of another's luck won't make your life better. But to argue luck has little to do with success, I think divorced from lived experience. I don't remember the short video, but let me say this. I don't consider being born with a 200 IQ luck. I mean, it just has to be, you know, that is the metaphysical reality that exists. It is what it is. It's who you are. You know, and somebody who's born with a low IQ is not unlucky. He just is. So I think there's something wrong with applying the concept luck in that way. Now, when it comes to inheritance, well, but it's not clear that that means they're successful, right? They inherited a lot of money doesn't mean they're successful. Success is not about money. And then, now, it's absolutely true that there is luck out there, right? I mean, you right place at the right time, no question about that. And there's no question, though, that the people who benefit the most from luck are the people who are prepared for luck. The people who are prepared for luck. The people who have prepared themselves for luck. But I don't think good luck is fortunate circumstances that were caused by entities. First of all, everything is caused. Nothing is uncaused. Everything is caused. The thing about luck is it's unanticipated, but it's still caused. It's not caused by the entity that benefits from it. But it's meaningless to say I just don't find it useful or meaningful to say Mozart was lucky that he had a brain for music. That's how Mozart was born. He was born with a brain for music that allowed him to do what he did musically. So I don't know. I mean, I think when we talked about this last time on the show, I said we need kind of a philosopher's perspective on luck. What do objectivist philosophers think of the concept of luck and how you use luck? But I think to use luck in the context of, what's his name does, Warren Buffett uses it in the context of, I was born in the 20th century. I was born with these skills. They happen to be useful in the 20th century. That's luck. That's just silly, in my view. Right. And I don't think it provides any additional information to you. Of course, you didn't cause when you would be born and what genes you would have. Okay. But it's not, you couldn't have been lucky because you didn't exist before. This is who you are. This is just who you are. So anyway, greater analysis and depth of the concept of luck is necessary here and would be useful. Thank you, Hopper Gamble. John, I think I was thinking of conceptual knowledge being volitional. Yes. Animals have perceptual knowledge for sure, right? A dog can learn through experience that a particular person is a threat and bite them. Do you agree with that? Absolutely. That's absolutely right. Christian. Leftists attack Musk because he influences people in the wrong direction. I disagree, arguing that Musk is only cheered by people who already think alike. He may overestimate his own power like Gail Wynand thoughts. I think that's right, but I think there is a group of people that is definitely being influenced by Musk. I would say it's not the MAGA. It's a group of young people in tech who, without Musk doing what he's done over the last few years, would have probably been just regular tech lefties. And because of Musk, are now on what we call the right through his influence. So I think he's been influential on young, typically ambitious people looking for a hero, and who would have gone in a different political direction if not for Musk. He has, I think, ultimately little influence on people like MAGA, the core of MAGA. But they're not educated, they're not young, and typically, and they're not ambitious. You know, MAGA is the opposite of all that. It's funny because I don't know if you saw this, but Steve Bannon has declared war on Elon Musk and has said he will do everything in his power to root him out of the MAGA world. There's very few people who are truly intelligent who are part of MAGA, and the ones that are there to take advantage of the idiots. They know everybody else is an idiot, and they're there to take advantage of them. Shazbot says, luck favors the prepared. Edna Mode in The Incredibles. Yes. So you got to be ready for when luck strikes, for when circumstances open up opportunities. You have to be ready and be willing to take the opportunities as presented to you. Colin, thank you. Colin says, thank you for all you do. Really appreciate the support. Thank you, Colin. I thanked Adria, I think. Yes, I got all these. All right. Okay, we got a bunch still of super chats. Let's see. Ian, your talk in San Francisco is great. One of your best. By the way, I'll be posting it soon, probably next week when I'm traveling. I'll post the talk from San Francisco. Very well done. Good Q&A. And great to see a crowd that was mostly young people getting exposed to these ideas for the first time. Yeah, it was my ideal audience, a lot of virgins and smart people. That's the other thing, smart. I like smart people. So these are programmers, founders, some students of computer science programs at Berkeley and Stanford, really, really smart people. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was fabulous. I mean, the guys who organized it basically did it on a dime, 5 days, and it was my ideal audience. It was who I want to speak to on a regular basis. Smart virgins, i.e. never heard these ideas before. Hopper Campbell, breaking news, Gavin Newsom demands an investigation into who's in charge of California. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. It's certainly not him, it's the wildfire, it's the environmentalists, it's the pressure groups like everywhere else. Pressure groups, they're the ones in charge. Mary Eileen says, Trump is really, really bad. Negotiating with terrorists is only part of what makes him evil. Yes. Remember, he negotiated with the Taliban. He was the guy who had a peace deal with the Taliban. Not your average algorithm. This is a quote from Victor Hugo. It is nothing to die. It is frightening not to live. It is nothing to die. It is frightening not to live. I like that. That is an excellent quote. Gail, how do you quick answer people when they say don't blame? Well, I mean, depends on the context, but generally, I say no, I do blame. I make moral judgments. I think we're all obliged to make moral judgments and to blame and to find causes, because otherwise, bad stuff will keep happening. And people need to pay the price for doing bad stuff. Esoteric dichotomy. Hey, Yaron, are there any active uploading podcasts that you would recommend? Many I used to listen to have sadly become Trump's sycophants. Thank you. No, not really. I mean, I don't listen because I don't have time. If I'm listening to anything, it's books. And then I'm preparing for the show, and I have very little time for anything else. And then I like to watch movies and TV shows. So I really don't listen to podcasts. I don't have the time. What will it take to remove California agencies, Enric asks. To remove California agencies? You'd have to take over California politics. You might have to, I don't know if you have to change the California Constitution because some of them are constitutional, but you certainly would have to dominate the California legislature or prove that some of them are unconstitutional to some kind of court that believes in the Constitution. I don't know where you're going to find any of that. Supkaski, how do objectivists define fairness, and how does one build a fair society? How does society misunderstand the concept of fairness? I think objectivism views fairness as a synonym to justice. So fairness is justice, which means getting what you deserve. And that depends on the context. In the economic context, it means getting based on what you produce, getting what the market will pay for. A fair society is a society where people get what they deserve. Bad people, people who violate rights go to jail. People who lie, steal, and cheat become poor. Productive, successful, honest people get rich or do well in life generally. So, yeah, I mean, it's basically the virtue of justice. That's what fairness means. James says, can you post photos from when you were in the Army? I don't have any photos from when I was in the Army. I mean, that was an era in which we didn't take a lot of photos. You had to deal with film and you had to develop it. And I don't know of a single photo that I own of me and or my wife in the Army. I wish we did. It would be nice to have those photos. Today, and this is, I never take selfies, and I don't understand the quantity of photographs people take, but people are documenting every moment of their life. It's not the case for my generation. I mean, in those days, taking photos was expensive. Nobody thought about it. You didn't have a camera in your pocket. You didn't go anywhere with it. You used the camera when you went on big trips. Otherwise, so I really don't. I would happy post them if I had them. Enric, will you cover personal finance in your Introduction to Finance course? Not really. I mean, we're going to touch on a variety of different personal finance topics and issues, but it's not a personal finance course. Liam, do you think Trump was our first nihilistic president, more nihilistic than Trump? Well, Trump can't be more nihilistic than Trump. I think he is. I think Obama was nihilistic as well, but I think Trump was worse. I think Trump was worse in his nihilism, in his disregard for truth, in his disregard for reality. Wes, thank you. Really appreciate that. $50 from Wes. Thank you, Wes. Liam, will AI be able to create anything we want in real life one day? We tell it to produce the perfect girlfriend or the perfect house, and it 3D prints it on the spot. I don't think you're going to get the girlfriend, but I do think you can get a house, so you could get things that are maybe smaller than a house. But yeah, absolutely. AI will be able to do that. I don't see why not. Certainly in your lifetime, maybe not in mine, but in your lifetime, yes. James, if Kamala had won, would Trudeau have stepped down? Would Hezbollah and Hamas be dialing it back like they are? Would the stock market be doing as well? Yeah, absolutely. So would Trudeau have stepped down? Yes. Trudeau is unbelievably unpopular in Canada. He's unpopular in the Liberal Party. I don't think Trump had anything to do, or very little to do, with his resigning. Maybe it wouldn't have been exactly this timing. Maybe it would have been a little later. But elections in Canada were inevitable. They were going to happen in October. The Liberal Party did not want Trudeau leading it. They were forcing him out. His finance secretary resigned, which was a big blow to him because she was very popular and very influential within the Liberal Party. And she resigned because of the deficits and the fact that he wouldn't take them seriously. So it had nothing to do with Trump. Would Hezbollah be dialing it back? Yeah. I mean, Hezbollah was devastated, not by Trump, but by Israel. It basically was crushed. Hezbollah had no option but to dial it back because it basically stopped existing as anything viable. So Hezbollah was destroyed, and Syria was overtaken, and Hezbollah was again destroyed, not because of Trump. Trump had nothing to do with any of those things. All of that is a consequence of Israel's really, really, really tough behavior over a period of a few weeks vis-a-vis Lebanon and Hezbollah. I mean, you have no sense of the extent to which they were crushed. Hamas has not dialed it back at all, and indeed is cutting a deal now that is devastating for Israel because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has forced Israel to cut a deal with Hamas, which Israel shouldn't do, a deal that is not good for Israel, that's bad for Israel, and good for Hamas. Hamas might indeed survive because of Donald Trump. So, no, I don't. The stock market do it as well. The stock market's not doing that well. The stock market did much better before Trump was elected. Stock market over the last few weeks has been going down. And I've told you this before many, many, many times over the years. Stock markets and presidents, you can't find a causal relationship there. Stock market did very well under Bill Clinton. Did that make him a good president? The stock market did very well under Obama. Very well under Obama. And it did in the last 2 years of Biden. The last 2 years of Biden were two of the best years in the history of the stock market. Does that mean Biden was a good president? But absolutely no. The stock market right now is actually down because they're really, really worried about Trump's tariffs. They're really, really, really worried about inflation picking up again because Trump is making all indications that he's not going to cut spending. The stock market's really worried. I don't have a graph. Maybe I need a graph of the S&P 500. But it's really fascinating to me, you know, that the president you like gets complete credit for, you know, for the good performance of the stock market. The president you don't like doesn't get any credit for it. That's just silliness, right? Let's see. Stock market peaked on December 6th. This is the S&P 500 at least, and has been going down since. You know, as of January, as of today, it's down from its highs on December 6th. And the stock markets, last time it kind of bottomed was in September 2022, September 30th, 2022. And from then until the election, it ripped. The S&P 500 is at 3,585 in September 2022. And in the election, you know, it was already, you know, at 6,000. So it didn't quite double, but it went up a lot. Huge amount. So do you say Biden's great because the stock market went up? I mean, stop trying to find good things about Trump. Just, you know, if they exist, they're accidental. And they don't exist. Liam, the more miserable and sexless young men become, the more likely it is we collapse into fascism sooner. Is that why Nick Fuentes is so popular? Yeah, I mean, Nick Fuentes feeds off of incels. He feeds off of young men who are, I think, pathetic, who are withdrawn from society, who sit in their mother's basement playing video games, who are angry, who are frustrated, who want an adventure and don't know how to find it, who have no meaning and no purpose in their life. And that's what he plays off of, and that's what fascism plays off of. So, yes, I agree with you. Michael, did you see Mel Gibson's house burn down as he was on Joe Rogan's podcast? Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I didn't see that. I did not. But as I said, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I mean, Mel Gibson is not only an idiot. I mean, I liked him as an actor in many, many roles, but he's a world-class idiot, an anti-Semite, a bigot, and a pseudoscience freak. His appearance on Joe Rogan, which has caused a lot of ivermectin. Did you realize ivermectin not only cures COVID, in spite of what everybody told you, it actually cures COVID, but it also cures cancer and like a dozen other diseases. I mean, ivermectin is a truly, this you know, anti-parasitical drug is truly unequivocally a miracle drug. And only Mel Gibson knows this. It's pretty scary that these people are so prominent in our culture. And one of them is going to be the head of the Health and Human Services Department. Esoteric, a Donald Trump appointee, I should say. Hey, Yaron, do you like cheese or cards, etc.? Cheese or cards? What does cheese and cards have to do with it? I like cheese. Yeah, I like cheese. I like cheese a lot. Cards, etc. What's etc.? I like playing cards. I like poker. I like bridge. Chess, not cheese. Is that chess? Oh, I can't see. I'm sorry. Do you like chess or cards? I don't like chess. I was never very good at chess. I don't have the patience for chess. I like cards. I like poker, and I like bridge. I used to play a lot of bridge. I don't anymore, but I used to play bridge. I used to really like bridge. I don't play any cards really today. Once a year, I play poker at Okan. Ian, I need some good news after this. Yeah, maybe tomorrow. I'll try to find some good news tomorrow, Ian. Sorry. Okay, sorry. My CEO announced out of the blue that our company would be sponsoring Alex's Energy Talking Points and linked Alex AI. No one knew who Alex was. They do now. I had nothing to do with it, but am proud. That is amazing. That is amazing. Good for the CEO of your company. Good for you. Alex is doing amazing, amazing work. You should watch his interview with Jordan Peterson that I think hit today or yesterday. It's really good. All right. Robert says, the harder I work, the luckier I get. Will Rogers. Yep. M. Azhan. Recently read in Wall Street Journal that China is now cracking down on finance sector. Yeah, I talked about that on a past show, but I did see that story in the Wall Street Journal today. Party loyalty, fear, and other signs are all negative. All negative. I think just waiting out China would be enough. It'll collapse on its own. I think there's a really good chance that happens. I agree with you. And I've been arguing that we're rushing towards a world war that is not necessary. Subkaski, in Objectivism, is there an ethical and unethical way to treat animals? Yeah, I think there is. Now, it depends on the animal, right? I mean, a pet is different than a chicken, different than a snail. I think the closer you are to the animal, particularly dogs and cats that are being bred to be close to human beings, you should treat them with decency. You shouldn't abuse them. You shouldn't cause them unnecessary pain. You should treat them nicely. I think animals generally, living beings generally, causing unnecessary pain is wrong. It's just. But that doesn't mean you don't cause them pain. It doesn't mean you don't eat them. It doesn't mean you don't kill them. It just means that torturing them for no good reason is immoral, because they're actually living beings, and a respect for life should be enough to not warrant that. Hunter, thank you, Hunter. $100, really, really appreciate it. Hunter says, was watching your show on Westerns, then watched your review of Whiplash, and your recent response to someone's question about it. Your movie reviews are distinctly unique in a saturated space and quite unexpectedly valuable and interesting. I don't know how to take the unexpectedly valuable and interesting. I would have thought you would expect them to be valuable and interesting. They're for me, ultimately. But I'll take it as a compliment anyway. Thank you, Hunter. Yeah, I mean, I bring a unique perspective. I've seen a lot of movies. I used to see a lot more movies than I do today. I bring a philosophical perspective. I also bring the perspective of just seeing a lot of movies and knowing something about the art form. So, but thank you. I'm glad you found them of value. I hope you actually go watch the Westerns that I recommend in that show and talk about it in the show. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, Jennifer, last question. The sun is shining here on a beautiful, sparkling snow here. Get well soon. Thank you. Here the sun is shining as well. It's warm, nice and warm outside. I need to go outside and get out of the air conditioning. But yes, I'm glad you guys in Michigan are seeing some sun. Good for you. It's about time. All right. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to support the show on a monthly basis. Sign up to support it on a monthly basis on Patreon. We've got a lot of people watching right now. If you guys are not yet supporting the show, please consider doing so. Patreon.com. Just put in Yaron Brook Show, and you can support it at any level you find appropriate. Hunter says, meant it as a compliment in the sense that movie reviews aren't your target content. Thank you, Hunter. I understood it. I was just giving you a hard time. Thank you. Yes, I like doing movie reviews. I'll do more of them. I just watched a good Korean movie that I'll talk about, and I watched another good movie whose name I forgot. Okay, so I'll have to look back on what I just watched. The main problem I have right now with movie reviews is my memory's going, so I can't remember them. I really like that movie, but what actually happened? I watched that movie a few years ago, but I can't remember what it's. Anyway, that's my biggest problem. All right. Thank you all. I will see you, I hope, tomorrow. I'm teaching a class tomorrow, so but I'm hoping to be able to do a show and the class. We'll see how that works. All right. Hopefully, I will feel much, much better. Bye, everybody.